started. My name is Kaya Heisey. I am from Mackin. We are the sponsor of Storyteller Spotlight. We're so happy that you joined us today. We're so excited to have Jeff Kinney with us today. So let's get started. Our special thanks first to Abrams for helping us set up this event. When we get to the Q&A portion, first Jeff is going to talk to everyone, but when we get to the Q&A, we're going to use the Q&A button for the questions. So then I'll read the questions and I'll pick out some really good ones to ask Jeff. So go over to the Q&A section on the bottom. You might have to hit that more button to find it, but find the Q&A and then you put your questions in there. And if you want, you can say who the question's coming from or what classroom it's coming from. I will also save the chat and send it to Jeff. So if there's anything you want to say to him in the chat, you can put it there. If you are a teacher or a librarian and you take a picture today of your kids watching and you want to put it on social media, tag us in it. And then we will be able to see all the fun that you had today. And just a quick plug for next week, we have 2 this month. George Takai is going to be joining us on November 13th, 2024, 1 o'clock Central. So go to mackin.com and sign up for that. All right, and here we go. I'm so excited to introduce Jeff Kinney. The first Diary of a Wimpy Kid book was published in 2007 and became an instant bestseller. The series has won many awards around the world, including 2 Children's Choice Book Awards and 6 Nickelodeon Kids' Choice Awards for Favorite Book. The series has remained on the New York Times bestseller list since the publication of the first book, so more than 775 weeks. The books are currently available in 70 languages. Jeff was named one of Time Magazine's most influential people in the world. Jeff spent his childhood in Washington, D.C. and moved to New England in 1995. He lives with his wife and 2 sons in Massachusetts, where they own a bookstore called An Unlikely Story. All right, now I'm going to hand it over to Jeff, who's going to show you around his studio and draw some for you.
Great. Thank you so much, Kaya, for that awesome introduction. I think it's incredible that I'm getting to speak to 750 classrooms right now. That is a huge privilege for me. So I'm speaking today from my studio in Plainville, Massachusetts. You can see that it's pretty colorful behind me. And I'm going to give you a tour around my studio here. So this is going to be a little weird. I'll give you a quick spin first. You can see it's really a super colorful space to work, and you can see all sorts of Diary of a Wimpy Kid colors in the studio. I work usually with my team of 4 here in my studio, and you can see that each one has a desk that is a color of one of the Wimpy Kid books. So here we go over here. That's a red desk, right? And we have a green one here. We have a blue one over here. And we have a yellow one over here. And yes, those are the first 4 colors of the 4 first 4 Wimpy Kid books. If you look overhead, you'll see these striped lights, and those are the spines of the first 6 or 7 books, actually. So there is the spine, the striped spine of Cabin Fever, which was my 6th Wimpy Kid book. So I live here in Plainville, Massachusetts. It's a really small town of about 9,000 people. And this is where I wrote my first editions of Diary of a Wimpy Kid. And I wanted to show you that I have the sketchbook where I started to write down my ideas. Now the cover is kind of falling off at this point, but if you look here, you can see this is where I started to record my very first ideas for Diary of a Wimpy Kid. And as time went on, I started drawing smaller and smaller because I think I was nervous that I was filling up the sketchbook a little bit too fast. But by the very end, it took me about 4 months to write just 1 page in the sketchbook. And here you go. Here's what this looks like. So you can see that I really packed the ideas onto this page. In fact, this page is so packed with ideas that this is probably about maybe almost 300 Wimpy Kid pages worth of ideas right here on this one page. So that's my sketchbook. That's where this all started. Believe it or not, I do a lot of the writing for my Diary of a Wimpy Kid books either in this room, which looks like a telephone booth from the UK. I've got a comfy chair in here. So it's a very small room. I just have a semi-soundproof room. You can see these panels. And then I've got this comfortable chair. I write there. And the other place I write, and this will really kind of terrify you a little bit, I think, is the cemetery. So a lot of times I'll drive my car, I'll just hang out at the cemetery and write in my car because it's a quiet place. Nobody bothers me there, generally speaking, and I can get a lot of work done. So people always find it a little odd that I write Diary of a Wimpy Kid books in the cemetery. Maybe it makes sense for Raleigh Jefferson's Awesome Friendly Spooky Stories, but not the regular Wimpy Kid books. All right, I'm showing you here that this is my desk right here. And this is where I do my drawing. So I draw on a computer screen, right? That's my desk right there. I've got a giant cheese wall right here. Right now it looks like it's showing jellyfish, but that's like a 9-foot cheese wall. Of course, cheese was really important in the first Diary of a Wimpy Kid book. I've got over here a statue of Greg in his mother's bathrobe, standing over a heating vent. We've got a circular TV over here. Circular TVs are really rare. I've got over here some of the things from the movies. So if you saw the Long Haul movie, for example, you might recognize this corny sign. Or if you saw Dog Days, for example, you might recognize this sweaty bowl right here. It's supposed to say sweetie, but Roderick got it. And then something that I have that I'm really proud of is this Scrooge McDuck statue. My favorite cartoonist was Carl Barks, and he created this character, Scrooge McDuck. He's sitting on a pile of money, but I think that's pretty cool. So I'm going to show you the outside of my studio. So we're on the top floor of my bookstore right now. There are all sorts of interesting things up here. If you look over my shoulder, you can see these replicas of the Macy's Day Parade balloons. So we've had 3 different balloons across the years. Here's Greg almost touching the cheese. He's really almost touching my head. But this is Greg. He's bent over right now. He's almost touching the cheese. So if you watch the Macy's Day Parade in a few weeks on Thanksgiving Day, you'll see something like this. Here's a giant Greg float, right? I'm down there somewhere carrying it. And you can see that this is how big the hand is compared to people in the windows. Okay, outside, look at my studio right there. And then I'll take you into the open area. Greg's favorite video game is Twisted Wizard. So we have a Twisted Wizard arcade game right there. And over here, Greg's brother's name is Roderick. He has a band called Loaded Diaper. And so we have a kitchenette that is kind of like a very rock and roll kitchenette. And we can actually light it up. There are all sorts of secrets in the studio like this one, right? Pretty cool. It's a fun place to work. Over here, we have a van, a giant van that's driving into the wall. It's a Loaded Diaper van. And above it, we have a Loaded Diaper drum set, as you can see. We have over here a few Diary of a Wimpy Kid standees. This is Greg's family standing up. And then over here, this is very strange. We have an airplane fuselage, right? Cut in half or cut through the middle. So this is where my team meets and eats. So we have these windows that look like they're airplane windows where you're looking out over here. And this is where we work. It's really fun. We have these clouds that light up. They're all different colors. Today, they're sort of a bluish green, but they can change to anything. On Valentine's Day, they're pink. On the 4th of July, they light up like fireworks. It's a fun place to work. And then over here, we have lots of different versions of the different books in the different languages. So we have so far 70 or 72 languages. I think we haven't announced 2 of them yet. So that's my studio. This is where I work. Usually it's really buzzing with activity, but today my staff has a day off, so it's a little bit quiet around here. And I'm going to take a second to draw for you. So if you want to get out a pencil and paper, now's your chance. I'm going to show you how I draw a Wimpy Kid characters, and we'll do Manny because he's kind of he's kind of a little easier to draw than Greg. So I'm going to do that. I'm going to create some space right here and then put my easel right in the middle. So here we go. Now, like I said, usually I draw on a computer. Oh, that'll be on the blooper reel. Usually I draw on the computer, but I'm going to draw on pencil and paper, pen and ink right now. And let's see if I can do this without it falling again. Okay, it looks kind of framed up. I think I'm going to move it forward a little bit here. All right, so let's see. So I'm going to draw Manny. Here we go. Put on my glasses. So if you're drawing along, I usually start with the eyes, right? Because once I have the eyes, I know how big Manny's head is going to be. And he's got a really long snout, right? So he sort of looks like a baby alligator. I don't know how that all got started. He's almost not human. So the mouth goes past the eye. So if you're trying to draw Manny and trying to make it look like the way that I do it, have that mouth go past the eye. Here are Manny's 2 teeth. You definitely would not want to get bit by Manny. Now, Manny, his head is sort of shaped like Greg's head, and he's got these 3 hairs, just like Greg. And he's got an ear right here. I think he's got a little bit of detail inside of his ear. Greg doesn't for some reason. I probably just forgot, when I first invented Greg, I wasn't thinking about how he should look like he is related to Manny. All right, so it looks like I'm probably going to run out of room. So let's see how this goes. I'm going to draw his shirt, which is kind of shaped a little bit like a tent, as you can see. And cartooning is really the art of simplicity. So I'm trying to use as few lines as possible to make the biggest impact possible. So here are Manny's 4 fingers, right? So he's got 3 fingers and a thumb, which is kind of enough for a hand. And then here are Manny's shorts. Now, Manny is the only Heffley who's not a little bit bent over. The others are a little bit bent over. They're a little bit curved. But Manny stands up tall because he's very small. So he has to sort of make up for it by having good posture. All right, looks like I'm still on the screen, which is good. Here is his other leg. All right, if you're drawing along, that is how I draw Manny. Usually I color in the shorts, but I'm not going to do that today. You guys can do it there in your classrooms. And we're just about to the time where we're going to do a Q&A. So Kaya, do you want to tell me what people are interested in talking about?
Yes, I would love to.
Great.
Okay. Many students have asked, but specifically I'll use Oren's question. Is it true you're going to stop the series at 20 books?
I'm not going to stop the series at 20 books. I hope you guys just got to see that easel fall over because that was pretty hilarious. I'm not going to stop the series at 20 books, but I finally actually have an idea for the 20th book. And I can't tell anybody about it, but I will say that it's going to, that Greg's birthday is going to be a feature in that book.
What was the first thing you ever wrote?
The first thing I ever wrote, I don't know. The first thing I ever remember drawing was a turtle. Like I found a box turtle back when I was in preschool, and I found it. And then when I went to preschool, I drew the turtle, which is my favorite animal, by the way. And I remember my preschool teachers were like, wow, they couldn't believe I could draw a turtle. I guess that was kind of a special skill back in preschool. But I didn't really become a writer of books until I started working on Diary of a Wimpy Kid. I wanted to be a newspaper cartoonist. I wanted to have, comics in the newspaper, but that didn't work out for me. So I became an author instead. And I only got good at storytelling in the last few years. So it's been a long journey for me.
The Northfield 5th graders want to know, are your books autobiographies in any way?
Yeah, they really are. They're sort of like they're rooted in my experience growing up. So a lot of the stories like the cheese and Greg trying to make the world's biggest snowball and Greg chasing kindergartners with a worm. Like they all came from my real life, but I'll give you an idea of how everything gets fictionalized a little bit. So when I was in the fifth or sixth grade, my friend and I got in a snowball fight in front of the school, and all the kindergartners saw us getting in a snowball fight outside the window. Of course, getting a snowball fight was strictly forbidden back then, so we were afraid we were going to get in trouble. So that got twisted into Greg chasing kindergartners with a worm and getting in trouble for that. So you can see that the source material is one thing, but then the way it comes out is very different.
Addie is wondering, how does it feel when you finish a book?
It feels really great because when I'm drawing, when I'm illustrating my book, I'm at my desk for about 15 hours a day, every day, which is just terrible. And so when I'm done with it, I just feel this sense of relief that's just incredible. So it's a great feeling.
Will Greg ever go to high school?
I don't think so. I think what's fun about Greg is that he's stuck in middle school. He doesn't really realize that he's had like, 10 first days of middle school because he's a cartoon character. And I think that one of the things I really learned about cartooning, it came through COVID. I realized that everybody needs something that's reliable. When the world changes so much as it's changing right now, it's nice to have one thing that doesn't change. And that's the value of a cartoon character. If you think of Donald Duck or Bart Simpson or Snoopy, these are cartoon characters that stay the same. Like we don't want to see Snoopy as an 80-year-old, we want him to be the age he's at. It's frozen, and so is Greg.
Why do all your books have 217 pages? Said,
That's a
we
great
love
question.
this.
Yeah, it's a great question. It's because the first one did, and that was just by accident. And then I just wanted to make sure all the books looked the same on your shelf. When the Harry Potter books came out, they sort of got bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. And then at the end, they got a little bit smaller. And I was like, you know what? I want my books to look the same on the shelf. And it's really satisfying, especially now that there are 19 Diary of a Wimpy Kid books, that they all look the same. I think that's fun.
Why did you choose to write about a kid who is wimpy?
That's a good question. I think that there are a lot of characters in children's literature who are aspirational, right? That means they're like heroic. They always do the right thing. I wanted a character who you could laugh at and along with. Greg is sort of a tangle of all my imperfections as a person when I was a kid, now as an adult. And so I wanted a character who was a little bit different. And so Wimpy felt like a good way to go.
How many years have you been working on this series?
I've been working on the series since 1998. So however that math works out, you can probably do it better than I can, Kaya. So however long it is between then and now.
Which characters are inspired by real people?
I think all of the Heffley family members are sort of loosely based on my own family members. I also do have a sister who didn't really make it into the books, but I had an older brother who played drums in the basement, and I had a younger brother who was a little bit spoiled, just like Manny. Of course, a mother and a father, a grandfather, just like Greg's grandpa. The inspiration started with my real family members, but then it got twisted.
Jordan from Hawaii is wondering if you wrote the screenplay for any of the Wimpy Kid movie.
Just the fact that he knows what a screenplay is, it suggests he has some sophistication in that regard. Yes, I did write the screenplay for the Disney movies. It's one of my favorite things in the world to do is to write a screenplay and then to hear actors perform it. I think that's wild. It's like really powerful to come up with words and then have somebody bring those words to life.
Madison Street Academy in Florida asked, how has the success of Diary of a Wimpy Kid books impacted or changed your life?
Boy, the questions are getting more and more sophisticated. Um, my life is crazy. I get to go to the White House and I get to travel all over the world. On Monday or Tuesday of next week, I'm traveling to China and then on to Japan, ultimately on to South Korea and Taiwan. Um, the books are sort of like a passport for me. They've unlocked all sorts of interesting things, and they've also given me a chance to make a change in my community. We built a bookstore. We're building out the downtown, and also in other places in the world. We work in Africa and build wells so that people can have clean water and basketball courts. So I wouldn't be able to do these things without the books, and I'm really grateful for these opportunities.
Chris in fifth grade asked, how long did it take to write your first book? And then I'll tack on another question, which is how long does it take now to write each book?
Great question. It took me 8 or 9 years to write that first book. It took me a long time to fill up the sketchbook with ideas. It took me 4 years to do that. And then another 4 years to write the first draft of the first Wimpy Kid book. These days, I can write a book in, I think end to end, it's like 5 or 6 months.
Appleton Elementary School wants to know why you chose this title.
This title, Hot Mess. Well, you may have noticed that we just went through a presidential election in which half the people in the country are really happy with the result and half are not. And so I thought Hot Mess was a good title to kind of reflect the moment that we're in as a country. Unfortunately, we're really divided, but I have hopes that we can come together. But it's Hot Mess was just kind of a funny reference to the situation that we're in.
Did you always think that you were a good writer?
I didn't think that I was a good writer. In fact, I think I'm still getting better at it. When I started writing the Wimpy Kid books, I was just trying to be a good joke writer. And then if I had a plot, like I felt like that was like a bonus. So I've never been a great storyteller on the page. However, right around book 9, I started to learn how movies were made. And when you understand how a movie is made, you understand how a story gets told. And so I started to get better at it. I'd say the first book where I got pretty good at it was The Getaway, which was my 12th book. And Hot Mess, which is my 19th book, is probably my best story. So I've gotten better at it over time, and I hope you feel the same way.
Tell us a little bit more about making the movies.
Oh, that's really interesting. It starts off with a screenplay, as one of our other uh, audience members referenced. So a screenplay is just like typing, it's just creating this document on your computer. And but it's pretty cool because I could say, let's say Cabin Fever was one of my screenplays. And my first line, it says, we open on a snowy neighborhood where kids are playing in the snow and building snowmen, and a guy slips on his driveway. So those are just some words, right? So that's like 2 or 3 sentences. But already, just by writing those words down, I've created a whole world. I've created a whole landscape where computer programmers and designers have to create this world. They have to create every mailbox, every article of clothing the kids out in the neighborhood are wearing. And I just think that's the power of words and the power of writing a screenplay. After that, what happens is we bring in the actors who act out the roles, and that's always fun. I get to watch every line being recorded. And then we start to animate. So it starts off really rough where the characters are moving like really blocky like this. And then eventually it becomes very, very smooth. And then we do a final polish, and then we light it really well and everything. So it's really cool to see that process happen step by step. But to make an animated movie, it takes about 2 years.
When you were a kid, what was your favorite class in school?
My favorite class in school was English. So that was both reading and writing. I really didn't start writing until after college, but of course I did some writing for assignments and things like that in school, but I liked those that topic. Reading was fun for me.
And adding to that, what was your favorite type of book when you were young?
My favorite type of book, I really liked Judy Blume books. So she's an American author who wrote realistic fiction that was kind of funny. And what I really liked about her writing was that when I read those books, I felt like I could see myself in her characters. Books can be windows and mirrors, right? Books can be windows into other worlds, like Harry Potter is like a window into another world. Or a book can be a mirror where you can kind of read about yourself in a way, or you can help to understand yourself by reading about the characters who are fictional. And so I had lots of books that were mirrors. And I think these days, what I've really realized is that every kid needs to have a book that's a mirror to their own life. And that's why it's so important that the publishing industry is really diverse, that there are lots of different types of authors so that every kid has a chance to see themselves in the pages of a book.
Okay, just a few minutes left for a few more questions.
Right.
What type of job did you think you were going to do before you became an author?
Oh, before I became an author, I was a newspaper layout person, like I did graphics and things like that. I eventually created a game online called Pop Tropica, which was a big website for a while there. And then I became an author. So I had lots of different jobs. And eventually I landed on the job of being an author. And now I own a bookstore too, and I'm a builder. So I like to build buildings, not myself, but I like to kind of help design them and then bring them to life.
What is your favorite thing about getting to talk to students?
I think it's just getting to meet them, honestly, because I just got back from a tour all across the US, and I met every night there were like 1,000 people in the audience. And writing is really lonely, right? Like I said, sometimes I write in the cemetery. So it's a lonely job. And then getting to meet kids, the kids who have the book that I wrote in their hands, is very validating. And it feels like almost like a ceremony in a way, because I get to celebrate the launch of a book. So just getting to meet kids is really special to me.
And last question, what inspired the cheese touch?
That's a great question. Of course, you got to cross your fingers to block yourself from getting the cheese touch. There was a piece of cheese underneath a basketball hoop in the parking lot of a church that I went to as a kid. And that church had a school. And there was an incident with the cheese. So I won't get into the details of it, but let me just say that the cheese was a real thing for a while there back in like 1983.
Okay, well, I just wanted to give everyone a minute more to tell Jeff anything in the chat that you wanted to tell him. I will take that whole chat, I'll share it with him so he can see your
Right?
comments. It has been blowing up the whole time, so I know that's gonna take him like a whole day to read. But you guys did really, really great asking questions. You had so many questions. I, of course, couldn't get to all of them, but thank you so much for being here. Again, our biggest storyteller spotlight ever. Jeff, is there anything you want to say before we sign off?
Yeah, I'm just blown away by I see all the comments going across the bottom of the screen, so many thank yous, and I can't wait to read everyone's comments. I promise you I will read every single one. And it's really touching to me that, I've been doing this for 17 years now, and the fact that that kids like my books to this day, it's like really, really, really cool and rewarding. So I just want to say thanks to everyone who showed up. I hope you got to see a little part of my world and that it helped you understand how the Wimpy Kid books came to be. So thank you so much, Kaya, and thank you to everyone who tuned in today.
Everyone, have a great day. Bye.
Bye.